All right, we're back again here in the glass bead game, and I wanted to talk about Godel, Escher, Bach again. The preface. I did another video that I actually read the first few pages of this 20th edition preface that Douglas Hofstadter put out, and basically it was re-summarizing again what this book is all about. Um, I sent an email to Dr. Joseph Mazur and asked him what he thought about this book. I said, I think this may be one of the best books ever written. Well, he said, forever is a long time, but it is a fantastic book. And also, oddly enough, he told me that he teaches the class. So, again, Douglas Hofstadter uh, won the Pulitzer Prize for this book, and it is so good, so important that college universities have an actual class on this book. And it's very complex, it's very long, 700 and some pages, and the book is about many, many, many topics similar to the glass bead game, and you have dialogues and mathematical explanations and logic and all kinds of things. Um, but I'd like to go through just a summary because this is this is about all you really need to know about the book. You can read the whole thing and go through all of these things, and it gets to be somewhat cumbersome to go through all this and think that deeply. But it really comes back to these simple concepts. So again, Godel was a mathematician, Escher was an artist, and Bach was a musician. And their significance in the book, and this is similar to the glass bead game, is drawing analogies between these three disciplines and their significant works and applying them to really the meaning of life and the self and reality and an I. How does an I come into being? Um, More specifically, Gödel's incompleteness theorem, in which it was written in 1930 as a refutation of um, Bertrand Russell's and Alfred North Whitehead's Principia Mathematica. And in that, they attempted to prove all of the axioms and theorems of mathematics, and they tried to avoid self-reference at all costs because um, anything that was self-referencing they thought would just lead to paradox. Well, in 1930, Bertrand Russell wrote this paper and and proved that Principia Mathematica is built on shaky ground, that in its final analysis and final foundation cannot be proven except from without that formal system. So some people have taken this to be like, when you apply this to reality, that this is almost like a god is what proves and creates the universe. Um, but Douglas Hofstadter uh, flips it on its head or at itself and talks about self-reference, and within any formal system, if you had a statement, I am not provable, and that statement within itself, and I've expanded this to I am not knowable, um, it creates a strange loop because of the self-awareness. Uh, the I, which you're saying is not knowable, is the entity that is asserting this claim. So it is this strange loop upon itself. And that leads to M.C. Escher's drawing hands picture, in which two hands are drawing each other into existence. So that is really the bottom line of the entire book of Godel, Escher, Bach. He talks about fugues. Johann Sebastian Bach writes fugues, which apparently within those the musicians mirror each other. So this is again built on this self-mirroring, self-awareness, self-reference, but mirroring. Again, this is based on logic, and you can go through that. That's a lot of the complicated, dry stuff. It's a search for ultimate truth about being, and he criticizes people that believe that it's the brain that is the self. It's not the brain, but it's the process and pattern that is developed within the brain that gives this self-emergent, self-awareness creation of an I. So it's not the brain, which is matter like anything else, and even brain waves and everything is this built of these inanimate constituents, meaningless constituents, but once they are formed in such a way, a pattern, that the development of an I comes into being. So that really is an amazing statement. So out of meaningless constituents, it then comes to have meaning. And I've done some other videos, and may even included in some of my books, of how if you think of the human language of the letter A and B and C don't have any meaning, or M and A and N don't have any meaning, but when we put them together and they spell man, now they do have meaning. So it's kind of that analogy. He's also talked about other analogies of the human being being composed of carbon and other genetic constituents, and they have meaningless, they're meaningless constituents, but then put in a certain pattern, they become to have meaning and creates the I again. Well, this all leads to paradox, and he talks about Zen cones, which talk about this paradox, where you kind of go in this loop of when you try to find out this question of who am I and what is existence all about. It's very elusive, and you can never get to the bottom of this. And so many of the videos that we've talked about is this elusive nature of the I, of reality, of God, of all of eternity, is unknowable by its very nature. And it's because of this strange loop, is what Douglas Hofstadter is asserting, that it just is like two cameras pointed at each other. It never can find its creative source. It's just this self-creating loop. So it is this pattern of these constituents that create consciousness and self-awareness. And there's elaborate talks about some souls are larger than others, which is really interesting when you think of the pursuit of enlightenment, and through the process of change and development, people approach those states of nirvana. He talks about a holism, interconnectedness of the entire universe. Again, that the I is, again, made up of these constituents that are present in the entire universe, and they're no different than any of these other constituents, but that they're just in this certain pattern, possibly at this temporal time, that creates this I. But it's all part of, in this holistic sense, again, the entire nature of being. And this kind of reminds me of Roger Penrose and um, Stuart Hameroff's belief and David Bohm's belief of this implicate order, that the universe has like this consciousness already built into it in some way. He talks about ant colonies, how the communication between ants, and they move in a certain pattern and produce things. And then that brings up the whole question of a free will. How do inanimate constituents have an effect on animate constituents, the I? Do they affect it, or does the I affect the inanimate? So that concept of determinism and free will and that all going around. When these patterns are developed, it leads to a concept, and this is really interesting to me, that we live in this discrete universe, and a concept, language, concept, anything is discrete, and it's almost like the mathematical formulas and language have a special significance in the universe, in that they bring about the universe itself and being and the I, because it's part of this discrete, meaningful concept, discrete concept that comes into existence and seems to make sense because it's the pattern. It comes in focus of the reality in which we're living. He's dedicated his life now to AI, artificial intelligence, in that he believes that if this is all true, that meaningless constituents within computer programs can also develop a free will and a consciousness and self-awareness. And this is also believed by his friend Daniel Dennett, Seth Lloyd, and others are starting to believe this as well, in regards to artificial intelligence, and how does that all fit into human beings and the future of mankind. Talks about creativity and how this all comes into being, that this is an act of creation through the development of these patterns again. So let's see if there's anything else here. Again, the I asserts its own unknowability. So round and round you go. Kind of a George Berkeley and Rene Descartes. I think, therefore I am. To be is to be perceived. It's this round and round. It's the mere fact that you have self-awareness that the I is in existence, and it's as simple as that. And if it's in this strange loop, it's self-creating and self-knowing, and it doesn't come from without. It doesn't come from a God or an outside source or creation. That it's just self-aware, almost godlike. He used a lot of analogies between the different disciplines. Again, the self-creation leads to this concept of almost a godlike state. We've talked about the elusiveness and the mystery, which Alan Watts has talked about so many times. And all of this came about because of this Godel numbering, that he was able to put the you're able to put any statements, any formal statements, into this Godel numbering system in formal logical systems, and come about with this strange loop of self-awareness and self-knowability, I guess. This is kind of beyond me because I'm not a mathematician. But again, this is the bottom line of the book, the long 750 pages and this self-creating loop. So it's really interesting to see if this is really true, what the ontological impacts of all this is going to be as we progress as human beings.